I'm the planning director here for the city. I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. I know this meeting was set up by our city manager to give you an opportunity just to have a one-on-one exchange with us as we work on our text amendment for Article 4. Many of you know that we went through that exhaustive process of updating our land development regulations. Back in 2017, there was a lot of changes made. One of the requests that was made by Councilman Galvin at the time is that we set up a community meeting to talk about particularly the buffer zone off of 13th Place and 12th Avenue. So we could have a conversation about how the two districts would coincide side by side between the industrial district and also the single family residential area. I think most of the folks that are here, I know the faces, so I know you're familiar with that street. So for tonight, we're going to have Debbie Love, our city planner, walk you through a facilitated session. We're going to explain the changes that are being proposed in the text amendment so you can understand the new language that's being recommended. If people have questions, and you can ask the questions at this time, what it means. We're also going to give you a historical overview of how the zoning changed and how the land use changed as far back as 2007, so you can understand why the map looks the way it does today and what types of buffer protections are being proposed to make sure that the two districts coincide harmoniously. So without further delay, I'm going to have Debbie come forward just to begin the facilitation session.
Oh, good evening. All right. Only one person said good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. As Tony said, my name is Debbie Love. I'm the city planner. And what we have for you tonight is we're going to talk about specific to this area here, some new upgraded buffering standards. It has already gone to Planning Commission, but let's go over them together. Who was at the Planning Commission meeting where we talked about this? Let me see your hands. Some were. Awesome. Some were not. So bear with me, those who were there already, as I go through and give, as Tony said, a high-level review of this actual zoning land use LDR update. First, this section of the code is talks about our zoning districts. And within this, we have a section of the code that has some special buffering standards for different types of development, different locations. This is now adding this new location. It's amending this particular section to look at some additional buffering. The location, as you can see here, as you can see here, is 124 13th, Northeast 13th Avenue, Northeast 12th Place. These particular properties right here. The idea when we were asked to take a look at this area was to see how we can actually maintain some decent standards here between what is really one of the lower intensity uses in the city and what is the actual highest intensity uses in the city. And still be able to allow businesses here an opportunity to grow and expand while maintaining some buffering and quality of life issues for the R2 here. I'm going back in time, I apologize. Operator error. Taking a look at this particular area here, this is an aerial of the general area. This particular first site that you see outlined in yellow, I don't like that. That you see outlined in yellow, I'm going to have to go over here, my apologies, is actually the former Spot Master site, and it's zone C3. The next group of properties is the properties that are zoned M1, the ones that we're talking about providing additional buffering standards for. Here is R2 zoning. Okay, so this just gives you a little orientation for this area in question, and that's the red area for where the standards will be applied. So this is what went before the Planning Commission. And so what are the proposed changes? Well, it's really to limit some of the uses.
Everyone should have a copy of it.
Thank you, Tanya.
So you can follow along.
You pick that up, and what you have here is actually what's in front of you, the handout you received when you came in tonight. It gives this is just for this area, because you can see these are some other areas of the city that have special standards. This adds this new area here. And under that, we talked about how the industrial uses, but we kind of worked through that language, remember, at the Planning Commission, so that the nursery didn't have to go inside the building. But we also make sure that it didn't include dry cleaning plants could not go back into that area again. It also added some expanded buffering standards. Right now, it's really just additional landscaping that has to go there between the two uses. So we actually added the fence and or masonry wall and some standards that would require when a CBS versus a steel fence would go in. It also limited the height. Currently in the industrial area, this height right here in the industrial is 55 feet. So this is going to reduce it down to 45 feet. The R2 has 35 feet, so this is now 45 instead of jumping up to 55. The setback is actually, the setback is 25 feet, where the M1 industrial only requires a 15-foot setback, rear setback. And the building orientation is such that no commercial business or signage can face the residential side. So those are the proposed changes that you all saw when it went to Planning Commission. At the Planning Commission meeting, there were some, on the second page of your handout are the Planning Commission recommendations, and those of you who were in attendance at that Planning Commission meeting where we had some questions and we had some going back and forth between those who expressed some concerns and working through some language at the Planning Commission. The highlighted areas here, what you see highlighted on the screen, is what was changed at the Planning Commission. It talked about where the changes of the use of, what happens if I never change it or I don't take my house down? What if I still want to live in that house and I don't want to tear it down? And what if I just did the expansion toward the other side where the industrial
We have fire.
Thank you. Thank you. So, much better. Thank you, Duncan. All right. And then we changed the steel to a solid metal fence. Then we looked at the setback. Well, again, the issue was, well, what if I still stay in the house? And what if I maintain it as a residential use? Well, then if you put the business to the rear toward 13th, then you'd only need a 15-foot rear setback because you're not expanding toward the residential. So that's what came out of the Planning Commission. And it was voted on at the Planning Commission. They got a 5-0 vote. And that was, again, the work of those who attended the Planning Commission. And I just got to be there to help facilitate that further discussion. So what happens next tonight, after tonight, is the ordinance would be revised based upon our conversation tonight, and it has to have, and if it's substantially changed from what went before the Planning Commission, it has to go back to Planning Commission. But if they're just minor tweaks and the recommendations remain the same or maybe are expanded, then it would just go straight to City Council for 2 readings, and then it's adopted, it becomes effective shortly thereafter, after the second reading. So that's sort of the high-level overview of what's going on. And what I'd like to happen tonight is that you all take a look at the handout and work together at your tables with your neighbors. Do you like it? Are there other things that you'd like added? Do you want to delete it? So we just need to get you all have at each one of your tables some paper, large paper, and as a group, you need to brainstorm together as a group to come up with changes or comments or things that you would like to affect that particular. I'm going to put this back up on the screen while you all work. And we have, it is now 6:12. You have 30 minutes to actually work through, or a little less, to actually talk together, work through, because then I'd like to hear from each of the tables what your comments were, so that we can figure out if we got some consensus on the end result. Any questions that we have on the process for tonight? Outstanding. I mean, it was great. So let's get going. Let's get to work.
You want to face it? I am facing it. So if you want to go in.
As we are getting ready to present our ideas, I would like to know, does everyone live, work, own in that area?
Yeah.
Am I hearing that? Yes? Everybody live, work, own in that area, right?
Literally right in front of you.
Okay.
I live a couple blocks away.
All right. So what I wanted everybody to see is that this isn't a whole bunch of people from elsewhere. That everybody has their opinions, their ideas, their thoughts, and their values that they would like to present tonight. So what we're going to do, we have a spokesperson for each table. Right? So, where's Marlene? Okay, Marlene, would you mind? Are you finished at the table? Thank you. I'm going to get Miss Marlene to come up, and what you're going to do is you're going to come, and Marlene will help describe these ideas. Okay. Stand up. Come up front. Here's the mic.
She's gonna, no, I couldn't hear you.
No. They need you up here on the mic. So they can hear. Do you have the paper with you?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't need it. All right, so the things that we talked about at our table were, obviously there's a lot of potential for those particular property owners to make some money, but then, how's it gonna affect the people on the backside? So the idea of the fencing, I think for everybody was important and necessary, but we had said, instead of having the fencing be right at the sidewalk, I think it should be at least 5 feet back so that there can be a vegetation buffer between the sidewalk and the fencing, so that you wouldn't have just, an extreme right next to the sidewalk. And then, what?
Currently, it's going to be changed to 25.
No, I say between the sidewalk and the fence, leave 5 feet. So don't allow the fence to be right up at the sidewalk line. Instead, push the fence line back 5 feet and require vegetation there, so that there would be a more comfortable walkway instead of having the fence right at the sidewalk line. And then also, the other thing that we talked about was that if you push the buildings far away from the neighborhood, what you're creating is a nice open space behind those buildings that could potentially become a party space if you have a brewery there, an outdoor working space if you have large manufacturing. So instead, think about the 15-foot setback we have already, so the 5 with the vegetation wall and then 10 more before you get the building, and leave the open space on the front of the property so that they could have, potentially a patio out front if it was a brewery, or have, area for cars to park on the front side of the building away from the residential area. Those are the 2 things we talked about. Anything else? Oh, and then the height. And the height wasn't an issue so much, but that maybe one of the things that could also be considered, if the buildings now are going to be coming back closer to the neighborhood, that the buildings have some sort of code limitations that require them to maybe have limited windows or things on the back side of the building, so it would keep the properties, the residences on the back side, more private, so that they don't have tall buildings looking out from there onto the residential area in the backside.
All right, so what I heard was you've got the 5-foot buffer, landscaping buffer, you've got the 15-foot, and then so right now it's 25 feet. But if the planning commission recommendation said, if the business is going that way, that could be reduced to 15 feet. What do you, I was unclear of what you wanted that rear.
15 total feet, 5 before the fence line, and then 10 till the building.
Okay, so use that 15 feet, 5 feet as a landscape buffer,
Right.
and then keep that 10 in the back open.
Right.
Okay, right, well,
I mean,
it would be for Ed because it's a setback.
Right, if they want more, of course they can, but try to encourage the buildings not to be placed super far to the front of the property with a lot of space in the back where it can be turned into a whatever free-for-all.
Got it, okay. All right. Table 1 ready? Yes? Who's your speaker?
We're not ready?
Yeah. Come on, you guys already have your stuff written out. Come on. Okay. Who's our spokesperson up here?
Because you want to do
I'll do it.
Okay, hang on a second. They're gonna go. Come on. Yes, no. Yes? All right, go on. There you go, sir. Hollywood, give me the mic.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, one of our biggest points was no access to any of these business from 12th Place. So only access through 13th Ave. And with that, no doors on the 12th Place street, so they don't have future access.
Doors or gates?
Gates or doors, anything that provides them access from the 12th Place street.
What else?
The Spot Masters has a concrete wall. We want that wall to be continued all the way down, so they don't have one steel wall fence or whatever they put up and somebody else puts up a different steel fence. You're going to have 10, 15 different types of steel fence. It's not going to look uniform. So whatever they put up, it has to all be uniform. So to eliminate that steel fence diversity, just continue that concrete wall all the way through on that side of the street. Third thing is make it appear residential as much as possible. It's just, we don't want to walk through our neighborhood, see their employees in the back, going through a gate or anything like that. Just put some trees up there. I know I walked down that street already. Somebody already had put big boulders out where there should be a sidewalk already. That's the other fourth issue. The sidewalk ends at one of the properties there now. I think it's Carol Key's property. Just continue that sidewalk, just make it so people can walk through it, not have anything that looks like it's part of a business. The fifth thing we have is limiting the building height. Let's make it the same as the R2 residential, which is 35 feet. That way it won't look too out of place with what's right next to it. And the sixth is already in conjunction with you guys have landscaping in a setback area. So like a 5 foot away from the fence is a good idea. Just a bunch of bushes or things that look good.
Nice landscape.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, spokesperson.
Giovanni Lobo, I'm the property owner of 12300 Northeast 13th Avenue. I've been living in this property 18 years. I live right here. This is my property where the little road got closed. I don't know if you really realize that this is our R2 residence, but right next to it, we have one big thing right here. The train.
Yeah.
We all know this train, right? Do everybody hear it from their house? Isn't it a problem? Does it bother you guys?
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't bother me. I bought this house on purpose because I'm a DJ and I make noise. So I bought an area which I'm allowed to make a little bit of noise. Now, recently this whole change of the property values, the zoning from residential to M1, I don't mind it. I actually appreciate it because I can build things. I'm going to do a recording studio and a rehearsal studio on my property in the future. So I'm going to be able to do all the advantages of the M1. I have questions with the setback and the restriction on the back. You guys want it to look a little pretty in the back. But I don't understand the 10-foot height restriction and the 10-foot extra setback does for any purpose besides looks. On the contrary, I think it'll do better with the height that M1 gives you, because it'll block even more noise from the train when you drive, when it comes by there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have jealousy windows in my house, and they rattle at 3 o'clock in the morning when the train passes by. So I like to keep it the way it was. A couple things here, I should leave the setback.
That your group believes that.
The what?
That your group believes that, right?
Well, my group believes it. That's,
Exactly.
no, our group believes it, yes.
Not just you.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. All right, one of the points we all agreed upon is to leave the height and setback for M1. Also adopt D2 Planning Commission recommendation. And basically, we don't want to wish our property rights taken away. That's all it is. It's just, we're being singled out, just this little area right here. Where else in North Miami do they do that? You know, it's just these houses. I want to keep it though where it's going to. That's it, pretty much. Thank you.
Is that you? Yes. Okay. So Marlene has now documented the changes that are being requested. And what we'd like to see you guys do is tell me, I'm trying to get some consensus here. And we have sort of a midpoint, we have a different here, we have different here, and then we have a midpoint. So, fencing, what did you all think of the 5 foot, putting the fence back 5 feet and having a landscape buffering? Can I get a show of hands of those who like that idea?
Will it be a wall or a fence?
Whether it's a wall or a fence, yeah.
No, hold on.
It's a green strip,
But the setback is 25 feet now, right? That the one you're suggesting.
right.
So 25 feet from the property line.
Right, and what they're saying is that some of the property lines, wherever it is, take it back 5 feet and fill that in with a green strip.
But I mean, the 25 setback wouldn't do that? No?
No,
Okay.
no, because it's not going, that would provide in front of the gate, the wall or fence or whatever you want to call it tonight, it actually would be a green strip of
Okay.
vegetation. Okay, so I need a show of hands on who likes that idea.
15? 5?
Let's start with the 5 foot green strip. We're gonna get there in a minute, because not everybody owns to the back of the sidewalk. So we're gonna say from the fence would go on, normally on wherever your property line is. Some may own it back to the back of the sidewalk. If they own it to the back of the sidewalk, it would be a 5 foot green strip from their property line to where the wall began, before the wall could begin. Whether you're at the back of the sidewalk or whether your property line is 5 feet back from the sidewalk. We're talking about creating a 5 foot green strip in front of the wall. Okay, I need a show of hands of who wants the 5 foot green strip in front of the wall.
What if you want more?
Okay, 10.
What about the middle?
Okay, right now we're just dealing with 5 foot right now. Okay, then we have the idea of keeping the, well, that's going to work because that would be an open space area anyway, because you can't put anything within that 15-foot rear yard. Code limitations for on the back of the building, what would be the back of the building if you're facing this way and have a new business because you have to face that way toward 13th for the new business. What do you all think about if you redevelop the building, having limited windows facing the residential neighborhood? Westward. Right, westward, on the west side of the building as you redevelop. Anybody like that idea of having limited?
But the industrial
Window.
people couldn't look at the residents.
Right. Okay, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
8.
8. Okay, 8. Okay. All right, now we have no access through 13th No, only through 13th Avenue, no access from 12th Place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, how about whether there are doors or gates on the wall? On not having, not allowing any gates on the rear.
So you're saying that somebody can have a piece of property and they're not allowed to go into their backyard?
That's the not go out of the backyard, but access the property from the back,
How much?
from 12th Place.
I see recording yeses, but no nos.
No.
Okay.
That's the
That's
industrial,
okay, that's not going to take care of that.
that's the industrial properties, right? Not having access.
Correct,
Yeah, as long as residential, it doesn't affect.
because you're not residential on that side anyway. You're a residential neighborhood that side. Okay, so remember, Marlene, we're going to take a count of everybody, so out of that total,
That's what it's all about.
those are the yes votes out of the total. Okay, so no doors or gates.
What about,
On
what
the
about
12th
business
place.
owners have to drive into 13th Avenue, no hands? What about business drivers driving into 13th Avenue, no hands? You should put that.
No hands?
No hands. Just, I think it's a great way of inhibiting people from getting on with their daily lives. You know, you want to close the back fence,
That's an
have
issue
no
for both line of
windows,
police.
extra
That's enforced.
setbacks.
Drive
I think
no
you should
hands.
put drive no hands into 13th
Okay.
Avenue. It's right along with what you're saying.
Remember,
It
this
makes
is-
about as much sense.
Okay, remember, let's keep this as a civil conversation amongst,
I'm just speaking at a volume because I don't
Okay.
have a microphone, but it just seems really ludicrous to tell people you can't have windows on your property facing west.
okay, we're
I don't
voting, but remember now, you're voting on these issues tonight. So far, because remember now, we have a total. And out
Driving
of
no
the
hands on
total,
13th Avenue.
okay, that's not what's on here in the speed board, so I put it on there. All right, continue spot master concrete wall to eliminate random fence. I'm not sure I was following that, but I understand that is it here? And making a consistent fence style. Is that what I heard from you guys? Okay.
Yeah, who's gonna pay?
Who's gonna pay for that?
Making the fence consistent. Okay. All right, let me see the yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. All right. Make it feel as residential as possible by adding more trees along that street side.
They're complaining about
Yeah, there's a lot of trees on that road.
By adding more trees.
We wanna make it a jungle?
And that was from that table, that was a recommendation.
It's fine, I
We added trees and they complained about that. We didn't put the fence, they complained that we didn't put the fence. Then we put the fence, they did an injunction with a lawsuit because the fence was being built at such an alarming pace. Now we're talking about taking down the fence that's just being built to put a consistent fence. Where else in our city do we have a consistent fence? I mean, our city looks like a dump of chain link fences, but suddenly we're like Coconut Grove with a fence down US 1 for this 12th place, really?
I hear you.
Improvement only happens with change.
So at this point now, what am I hearing about adding more trees on the 12th place? Is that what I'm hearing, 12th place? All right, more trees on 12th place? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. All right, now, this is extend the sidewalk down. What do you all think about extending the sidewalk down? Okay, show of hands. Do you like it? Extending the sidewalk on down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Who's funding
6,
this?
7, 8, 9. Okay. Limit the building height to 35 feet.
35?
8. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we already took the landscape 5 foot. Okay. Leaving the setback, now I was a little confused, I didn't get clarity. You wanted the planning commission recommendations, but you wanted to leave it at 55 in the setback, is that right? I mean, 15-foot setback?
15-foot setback,
Leave the M1 and not increase it more.
not increase it more.
Okay. All right, so leave the M1, that was that question there. Okay, I need a vote on that one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
But these
7,
people don't live
8,
here.
9, 10, 11, 12,
These residents?
14.
Are they residents? Are they residents?
We own the property, you're trying to change. Yeah, you're trying to change our property.
People that work in the neighborhood that have jobs.
You have an apartment building across the street.
And you have to have permits to operate there.
Okay. Keep the height at 55 as is allowed in M1. I need show of hands on that one.
What was it?
55-foot height instead of 45? Okay. Tanya, can you help me get a count? I can't really tell. Derek? Then you have one at this table. 13. 13? Okay. And then we had it adopt the planning commission recommendations. Did you all
What was the question?
Did you all hear me? No, we can only have it adopt the planning commission recommendations, the work product that we all work together at planning commission, which were, remember what these were, look on your second sheet. The planning commission recommendations. Show of hands on that.
Adopted, yeah.
Adopt the planning commission recommendations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We only D2.
Only D2 is what
Only
we
Okay.
D2.
8, 9 for all, and then you all,
D2. D2 is what we're asking. Yeah.
okay, but
I
that's
said-
not what you said.
Yes, sir, look at my paper.
Good good now.
Paper, it's written on my paper.
She, what she's writing down. All right, fine, just D2. All right, so we have 9 for all, just D2. Derek, help me with that count a little bit, please, sir. 12. Okay. All right.
Ms. Long, can I ask a question? How many people at that last table actually own property or live in North?
They're my employees at the business, at the nursery.
I'm
Thank
a
you so much for
property
your
owner.
concern. It's not just about property owners, it's also about property owners and business owners in the city. They have a right to earn a living.
Your rules
Where
will
do you live?
jeopardize what we can do there.
I live in the city of North Miami.
You don't live in that
Yeah,
area.
but you don't live in the area?
I live 5 blocks from the.
So you're not in
So
the
how does
affected
it affect
area.
you?
It affects me because of the traffic and stuff. when
The
there's a-
traffic,
Oh.
really?
Okay, let's continue to.
No, I have to put this on the record, real clear. First of all, the noise pollution that Mr. Lobo mentioned about the trains, well, can you put the thing on? Because he talked about his personal thing, I want to do the same. So I need the,
He was talking about that too.
no, he was talking about, yeah, at the end. He talked about noise pollution, so I'm going to address that.
Yeah. What did you want to see? The map?
Yeah,
Just make sure.
this is very simple. These changes, these zonings were never supposed to happen. I went to the meeting when they were planned, and we expressed that we didn't want these changes to be, this area to be changed to industrial precisely because for 9 years our neighborhood suffered from an industrial operation that was operating with the blessings of the city and city officials for 9 years, stealing our water, stealing electricity, making noises 24/7. And because of this, Scott Gambling, who was the only one who protected us, asked them to create this buffer zone to protect us. Now, when you talk about noise, and you should know that noise pollution is an epidemic in this country. Airports, trains, rails are being sold left and right. This is a quiet zone. Actually, and there have been 3 accidents already. They took half of the car in front of me with the fast train that is passing through. That is going to stop, the whistles and all of that. Plus, eventually, somebody's going to take a lawsuit, and the damages that your houses have suffered from the vibrations of the train, and they're liable, and they know. And this is just a question of time. So when you talk about noise pollution, make sure you know what you're talking about, because the older you get, the worse noise pollution affects you. Noise pollution will increase your heart rate, will increase your blood pressure, and a bunch of other things, your vision, diabetes, your you will get more violent. So when you're exposed to noise pollution, you may get used to it, but your body doesn't. So those changes in your blood pressure and all the other medical elements that come from noise pollution are not only permanent, they're irreversible. So, before you talk. So, hold on. So now, employees, they got all the employees, and you're counting them. These are gathering us to do this workshop, are gathering us to protect the residents, not the industrial area, the resident, us.
We vote.
Yeah, these are they don't live there. This is so wrong.
Okay. All right, let's just, it gave us a feel. That's the intent. Normally what you do in these type of exercises, we have like little dots where you can go up and just stick your dot on whether you like it or not. I felt that we could be civil enough to have a conversation tonight and just vote and talk amongst, as neighbors, and you're our neighbors, these are your neighbors, these are your neighbors, your neighbors.
We just said they're employees, they're not our neighbors. How can another country vote for us?
All right,
We have our
so
own rules, we don't have people vote for us.
this is a conversation to have tonight. You've had it. Now what we're going to do is we have heard what your concerns, we have heard your concerns, and we have heard your concerns. We'll go back, and as your professional planning staff, we'll take a look, because it's really a hard thing when we are working together as a community to try to come to a consensus. That's not everything you're going to get, everything that you want. That's not what consensus means. Consensus means you try to come together to get the best that you can possibly work through. There is a big difference between someone who wants to prohibit access to someone, a business who says, I don't want that. So we're not coming to some consensus on everything tonight. But it does give your professional planning staff some measure of understanding the issues in even more detail. And that's what we needed to hear from you. It wasn't that I expected to go home and go, oh yes, now I know how everybody voted, but at least it gave your professional planning staff a sense of even more concerns that you raised, and then we'll go from there. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. Thanks for having a civil discourse and talking to your neighbors and talking to your friends about the issues. Now what you saw will happen is that this will come back, and depending upon the level of changes that are needed, it may have to go back to Planning Commission. And we hope to see you at the Planning Commission. If it doesn't raise to that level, it will just go to City Council. So if you haven't done so, we encourage you to sign up through the city's website, because you get notified of all the meetings, and you can access the agendas to know what's moving forward. You can always call our department, and we can tell you if something's going to be heard on a certain date or not. And we'll keep you posted if you ask us to do so. I'm going to let Tanya close us out tonight, and I know you had one more thing that you wanted to add.
So my only request, So my only request to the city is that when they send out these notices for these planning meetings, that they be done in a timely manner. I think I received the email for this meeting on Saturday at 10 a.m. So that's a big reason why a lot of the residents that I live with and around are not here tonight, is because of that. I called everyone, but the city needs to make sure they give a heads up, at least a week's notice, for the Let It Snow event, you gave 5 days for the residents for the Let It Snow event. But for this meeting, I received the email on Saturday at 10 a.m.
So that's useful feedback, and that's really why I came up, because I just had a sidebar conversation with your neighbor, and she mentioned the same thing. So we'll convey that to our PIO staff. Certainly from our end, I'm actually very excited to see this turnout, because this is not the sexy topic that people typically come out and speak. I mean, we've had other workshops over the years. I've been here 12 years, and it's hit or miss. People don't come out. So I applaud this group for coming out and for stating your position and for letting us know. We're your technical experts. We do our best effort inside the office to really listen to the comments when we go to the public hearing, but it's when you get to the ground level and you have the community meetings, the lights are pushed back, there's not that big dais in front of you, that you can be very transparent and very honest with us about what your concerns are. We hear you, we absolutely hear you. So what happens next is that we garner all the information in. I know some folks behind me were saying, why are we voting? This is ridiculous. There's really no other way to tabulate and to hear what the numbers are. I think the 9s meant 9 out of 25 people had a position. Give me one. I gave you the entire time. I didn't speak at all. I will finish and give you the floor. So I do recognize that this is not an electoral process, and that's not what we're attempting to do. We just need to be able to tabulate so we can bring back the feedback. We can articulate that, put it together in text form. So what happens next is that we go to a public hearing. It's a public process. You have the land use laws that we will now craft. I invite you all, every last one of you, to be back at the public hearing when we propose this to City Council. Mayor and Council have to vote on it, so it's not, nothing that you see here tonight is etched in stone. The council has to vote, so don't just leave and say, well, we told them what we wanted, they didn't do it. You have to come out to public hearing. You have to be a part of the public process. When the votes are passed, then the final decision will be made at City Council. It's an ordinance, so that date hasn't been set. Thanks for tweeting your text. That date, she said when on her chart, that date hasn't been set. So we'll go back, we know we're going into the Christmas season. We'll go back, we'll put the literature together in text. Absolutely, staff will make sure that we send information out to the neighborhood. We're hearing from you that the PIO's marketing and the outreach is not getting to you in a timely fashion. So we'll make sure we convey that to our PIO staff. However they're doing it, you need to do it further in advance, maybe door to door, as opposed to just email that can linger or get lost in your spam. So we'll definitely from our end work with PIO on that. So you get ample notification before that ordinance is heard at City Council. The gentleman in the red had a question.
Yes, you're voting the way you're saying, oh, yes, and then everyone else that didn't vote, because maybe someone didn't want to vote. They thought they're neutral. They don't want to vote on something. They're not, just don't assume they're immediately a no.
Correct. So tabulation just means the 9 is an absolute yes.
Yes.
9 people said yes.
But don't assume that everyone else is saying no.
No, absolutely. I mean, statistically that would make sense. So we do get that 9 people absolutely said yes, but the room has 25 is really my point. So we hear all of you tonight, the comments that have been made, but there's no winner or loser. I want people to not leave here thinking, oh yeah, the majority voted against. That's not it at all. We just needed to tabulate what each position was on each of the points that were shared tonight, but I want to emphasize, give me a minute, I know you're bursting. We want to emphasize though that there is a public hearing, and there has to be a vote on the ordinance at the public hearing, and then the law will be etched in your code. So do not leave tonight thinking this is the final. This is really just the primer. We'll do our draft, bring it to City Council, and we'll
So I
vote
just
it
want
up.
to clarify something for the record. First, if the changes are big enough, they're going to go to the commission instead of the city council. And I want to make that perfectly clear.
Correct.
Second, you schedule this meeting in a school day where 6 of my parents are within activities with their kids, and they weren't able to come. That's 6 residents, with each one 12 people. And the third and most important point is that this is being done to protect the residential area from the future use of commercial. So having employees and people who don't own property there expressing opinions, and that's what they are, opinions that are not based on fact, I have a problem with that. You have to be arresting somebody who's going to be affected for the rest of your life by this decision. Not somebody who's temporarily there.
So we hear you, it's a public meeting, and as public officials, we are open to hearing every view. If you're an aggrieved party,
as votes of residents.
so we hear you.
Exactly.
Your point has been heard, but again, it's a public meeting, so we've heard every point tonight. So again, I applaud you all for coming out.
Thank you.
We look forward to following you through the process until we get to the public hearing. Have a safe night. Merry Christmas, everyone. Feliz Navidad, and happy holidays.